Hi guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm Marilyn and my channel is Making with Marilyn. Now on my back deck, I have a couple of pots of herbs. Two of the herbs are ones that have come back year after year, but the other three are ones that I planted just recently. So on today's video, I'm going to use some clear cast acrylic and I'm going to make some garden stakes. That way, anyone that I ask to go out and pick a few leaves of cilantro or of basil, they're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. So to cut my clear cast acrylic, I'm going to use my xTool P2CO2 laser. I'll also use my computer to design what I'm going to cut out, as well as run the xTool software. After it cuts and engraves, it's going to have a lot of dust on it from the engraving. At that time, I'll clean it with some rubbing alcohol and a paper towel. Now, when I ordered this acrylic, I probably knew how thick it was, but it doesn't say on the packaging. And the packaging is actually just a film that protects it that you remove. So I'm going to use a pair of digital calipers to figure out the thickness of this, because I'm going to need to know that to know what settings to use in the laser. So if this is a project that you're interested in, sit back, relax, and let's get started. The first thing I want to do before I go over and make my design is I want to find out how thick this cast acrylic is. And so I'm using some digital calipers. I got these off of Amazon. They're very inexpensive. And if you're doing much lasering, eventually you're going to need a pair of these. So I'm going to go ahead and turn them on by hitting this red button. And right now they're set to measure in inches. With acrylic, it's usually measured in millimeters. So I'm going to press that blue button and change it so that it will tell me what the thickness is in millimeters. Now you need to make sure these jaws are really tightly closed, and if anything other than 0 shows up on your screen, you press this yellow button and it takes it back to 0. Now I'll go ahead and open the jaws. And then I'm going to go ahead and close them. And this is measuring at 2.9 millimeters. So I know that when I end up making my design and picking my settings, I'll go ahead and use the 3 millimeter setting. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and peel back this protective coating and just expose about 7 inches. That way the part I don't use is still protected from getting scratches for its next project. I'm going to go ahead and open xTool Creative Space. This is the software that xTool uses to run its lasers. It also has some design features. I typically don't design in it, but today I'm going to show you how you can use this simple program to make some basic things. All right, let's make this so you can see the whole thing. What I'm going to make are garden stakes, and so I'm going to put together a few shapes to make the design that I want. So I'm going to go right over here to Shape. Click on it, and the first thing that I want to do is bring in a triangle. Then I want to bring in a rectangle, so I'm going to click this arrow button and find a rectangle. And then lastly, I want to bring in a circle. All right, let's go ahead and move some of these out of the way. I want to move the circle to the bottom. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to connect these two so that they have a really smooth line. If I zoom in or enlarge my screen, I can see that the triangle and the rectangle really don't fit together well. You can see that right there. So I'm going to take my rectangle, and with my up arrow on my keyboard, I'm going to move it up 2 or 3 times. And actually that was 4. And if I blow it up, I can tell that looks pretty good. Now all I'm doing right now is getting the proportions, not necessarily the size. I want my rectangle to be quite long. So I'm going to unlock the proportion button, the little padlock, and I'm going to drag this down longer. All right, let's go back out so we can see the whole thing. And then lastly, I want to put my circle so that it's halfway in the rectangle and halfway out. And you can tell it kind of snaps into place there. I like that feature in the software. Okay, I'm not quite ready to weld that on. Let me go ahead and select both of these. I'm going to go combine and unite. Now I want to see what my dimensions are. I want the overall height to end up being about 6.5 inches, and I want my width to be about 1.25. So let's go ahead and change the width to 1.25. And then we'll have to unlock it, and I'm going to change the height. Let's say 5.5 right now. Since I changed the width of the whole design to 1.25, I need to do the same thing with my circle. So I'll select it with the dimensions locked. I can either change the height or the width because they're the same number. Now I'll go right up here and it snapped into place. And now let's select both of those shapes, go back to combine and unite. It ended up at 6.125 inches tall. I'm going to go ahead and unlock it, make it a little bit taller. And I think that looks good. Now in this garden stake, this is going to actually go into the plant. So let's flip this over. I'll select it, and then right here on reflect, I'm going to say reflect vertically. That just means flip it vertically. Okay, that looks better to me. Okay, since I have this made and I like it, I'm going to go ahead and hit Command C for copy, Command V for paste, and I'm going to paste several on here. I don't need that many, and for now I'm just going to move a lot of them out of the way, but I'd rather go ahead and copy and paste now in case I do need them. So I have several herbs and different things like that I want these garden stakes for. So what I'm going to do is put the name of the herb on each one of these. I'm going to go to text, click on it, and then the word hello always shows up. I'm going to back over that, and in all caps, I'm going to type cilantro. All right, that looks good. It's nice and plain, which I want this fairly plain because it's all going to be engraved on just a clear piece of acrylic. But let's go ahead and change that to engrave so it fills in. And let's go to typeface, and I want to try this caveat. I think that's pretty cute. That's the regular style. I'm going to go up to semi-bold. I want it to be quite a bit bolder than what it is now, but not extremely bold because that's what takes so long. When you're engraving large areas, that takes a long time on a laser. So I'm going to go with semi-bold. Now I noticed something about this that I want to point out to you. Notice how this font's a little bit jaggedy, and that's going to show up in my engrave. I don't think I will ever notice it. It's going to be small, and it's going to be white engraved on clear. I think I'm fine with that. So now I want to find what size I want to have this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn this. All right, let's see if that's pretty straight. It is. I can tell because the right line of it is straight with this gray line, and it would go right here. Now this point is going into the dirt, and the dirt could come up to about here, so I need to make that smaller. So with it selected and the proportions locked, I'm going to go ahead and change that to 3 inches. Okay, I think that looks good. Now let's select both items. We're going to go right up here and hover on align, and I'm going to horizontal align center. I didn't really see it move, so it must have been pretty good to start with. Okay, let me go ahead and copy and paste this, and then I'll go ahead and select both of these. I'll go up to group, and this one's ready. Now let's move on to the next one. The next one's going to be time. I'll move that over. If I wanted to make it larger because it's small, I could, but I kind of want to keep these the same width and the same proportions. Oh, I misspelled it. Okay, that'll make it a little bit longer. Let's add an H in there. That looks a lot better. Let's make sure that's in the center. Whoops. Okay. Now, this time I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it a few times, just like I did before. Now I can go in, and one thing I notice is this word is farther from the top than cilantro is. I'm okay with that because I think if I hugged the top it would look a little bit odd. So I'll go ahead and group those. I also have basil and spearmint. Now that's a long word, so we are going to hug the top on that one. And notice when I click on this, there's a line that goes straight down to the point, and that is showing me that spearmint is centered from left to right, so I don't have to go up and align it. All right, let's move it down just a tiny bit. And then the last one that I have is chives, or chive. So now I can go ahead and get rid of those extras, move one of these over, get rid of the rest, and then move chive up into place. Okay, let's go ahead and group that. I can't remember if I grouped these. I'm pretty sure I grouped this one. Okay, yes. It's telling me I can ungroup it, but group is no longer an option, so I already grouped it. Now let's go ahead and find our material. I'll go right over here to material, and let's click on more. I'm just going to type in acrylic and see what all my options are. And mine's transparent acrylic. Notice that I have the option of 6mm transparent or 3mm transparent. Mine is the smaller, so I'll click right here and I'll say use. Now I need to go back and set the settings for these, and I might have grouped a little bit too soon. Let's click on this and see what it's showing. Okay, everything is on one layer. So I'm going to go back and ungroup everything. And the reason I'm doing this is because part of the image is going to cut and part of it's going to engrave. Now I select the word cilantro and I move it to its own layer. That way I can work with it independently and I can tell the xTool to engrave it instead of cut it. Now I want to do the same thing for all the other words. Now with this one selected, I'm going to hold the Shift key down and then I can select the other words as well. And I'll say move to, and I'll move those to red. All right, so let's select our red layer and it's already set to engrave. So now let's select the blue layer and I'm going to say cut. Okay, now I'm curious, do I need to group those back? I'm going to try that. We'll see what happens. After I group all of these back, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the laser. That way I can see in the bed of the laser and I can determine where to place these. Now I already have my clear acrylic in the laser. I have a ruler above it so you can see where the top of it ends. And then I left part of the protective paper on at the bottom because I'm not going to need the bottom part of the acrylic. All right, so I apologize it's a little bit louder now, but you have to turn it on to be able to do this step. Here's the ruler I was talking about. Now I can see the edge of the acrylic right here, and if I couldn't, I could tell that's the edge because here's the protective paper that I left at the bottom. But let's go ahead and start moving these around. Okay, then I really want to make sure that I am on the acrylic here, and I want to see really what reality is up here. With this machine, you have a close view. So you have two cameras, one that sees the bed, and then one that captures the close view. That camera is near the laser head. So I'm going to click Capture Close View, and then I put the little camera where I want it to look at. Okay, here's the edge of the acrylic, and the edge of the acrylic up by the ruler is touching the ruler. It's right at where the ruler is. So everything looks good. All right, so I'm going to do a reality check. I have 3mm transparent acrylic. For my layer 2, it's going to engrave, and for my layer 1, it's going to cut. So the cutting is going to be at a power of 100, a speed of 20, and then the engraving is going to be a power of 15% and a speed of 500 millimeters per second. We're doing one pass, and then for my engraving, I have it set at 200. That should do a really nice job. Other options I have are all the way down to 90 and all the way up to 300. Honestly, I think 200 is a little bit of overkill. These are pretty simple words, so I'm going to go down to 160. At this time, I can go ahead and hit Process. It's going to give me a preview. It's exactly the way I want it to look, so I'll hit Start. Now the laser won't take off on its own. You do have to go ahead and press the button on top, which I think is a nice safety feature. It makes sure that you're ready for the laser to start. Now sometimes when I'm making videos, something goes awry with the camera or the microphone and I miss out on something. Let me show you. I've already cleaned 4 of these, but I figured out the camera wasn't working before I cleaned the last one. So let me show you what it looks like before you clean it. See, it looks blurry. That's just because of the dust on there. So all I needed to do was spray a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a paper towel and then wipe that off, and it takes that dust off. Let me go ahead and dry it off so I can show you up close. All right, still a little bit streaky, but that's okay. You can see just how clear that is, and that's exactly what I wanted. Now it's time to go outside, put these in the pots, and I'll be done. Now, if you're in the market for some cast acrylic or the xTool P2 laser, I will put links to those in the video description. Those are affiliate links, and so if you use them, there's no higher price for using them, but I do receive a referral fee. That really helps support the channel, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining me today, and until my next video, bye-bye.